Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the program. Sorry for the little bit of a delay. We had our evening prayer, so that usually takes a few minutes to get everyone from inside the prayer hall to inside here. First of all, I want to welcome everybody to the Farmington, especially from Farmington Hills area, to the Tawheed Center here, especially the Multicultural and Multiracial Council of Farmington Hills. Welcome. We're very happy to have you here today, especially with everything that's been going on locally and nationally across the country. It's really going to be a good evening. We're going to discuss a lot of different things. So first things first, usually whenever we start off an event in our faith, we usually start with the name of our God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this case. So we're going to have a brother who has memorized the entire Quran by heart. His name is Hafiz Amin. Hafiz just means somebody who has memorized the entire Quran by heart. And I'm going to have him at this time just read a short passage for us to get started. And then after that, just to give an idea of the agenda, we're going to have State Representative Christine Gregg come up, and then we're going to also have Police Chief Chuck Nevis also come up after that as well. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Oh, after I do that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون صدق الله العلي العظيم. I'm going to read a quick translation of the verses that I recited. So I started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which means in the name of God, the merciful, the beneficent. O you who have believed, seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, God is with those who are patient. And do not say about those who are killed in the way of God, they are dead. Rather, they are alive, but you do not perceive it. And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits. But give good tidings again to those who are patient. Those who, when disaster strikes them, they say, indeed, we belong to God, and indeed, to Him we will return. Those are the ones upon whom are blessings from their Lord and mercy, and it is those who are the rightly guided. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amin. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Congress, have the State Representative Christine Gregg come up, and she's going to share a few words with us. You can feel free to sit. All the mics are on, so you can sit anywhere you want. And if you want to come up here, you can speak here too, wherever you prefer. Okay. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Christine Gregg, and I am the state representative for Farmington and Farmington Hills. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the role of a state representative, we're elected every 2 years to represent our community in Lansing when we're making state law, state policy, and debating issues. And I can tell you what an honor it is to represent our community. There are many times when issues come up, particularly around diversity and inclusion, that I can say, my community does that. And could you learn from what my community does? And that's what we need to do. We need to share what we do as a community, how we get along, how we know that this is how the world is supposed to work. People of all faiths or no faiths. People of different, genders, sexual orientations, everything. We come together as one community and we work on making the community as a whole better. So I'm very honored to be here tonight. This is the first time I actually got to watch a prayer service, and it was beautiful. So thank you so much for inviting me to witness that. And I want to let you know that as we debate issues in Lansing, I'm standing up strong for diversity, for inclusion, for understanding. We've got to improve this state. We have to make it welcoming to everyone. We have to make sure that people understand that to make Michigan a great state again, it means our doors are open and we're welcoming through our policies, through our businesses, through all of our laws. And I just know that we can get there together. So again, I want to thank you. And if anyone has any questions about anything state government or community, I'd be happy to take any questions before we get started with the panel. One other thing I just remembered I wanted to say, too, if anyone's thinking about questions. I really want to encourage you to get engaged in some different types of community events. Every month, I have a town hall meeting in the Farmington Hills City Hall, just at 11 Mile and Orchard Lake, very close. And I update the community on what's going on in Lansing. And you can ask questions. So, for example, tomorrow morning, if you're up early, at 10:30 in the morning, we'll be talking about some of the election laws that were just passed through the House and the Senate this week. We'll also be talking about the roads package, anything that affects you directly. So I really encourage you to come to those events because, again, the more that we go to events with everyone being represented, I think the better we'll have understanding of each other's concerns and issues. Also, city council meetings are a great opportunity to find out what's going on here locally. And also, I think it was mentioned earlier in the welcome that we have a wonderful organization called MCMR, Multicultural, Multiracial. And they get together once a month or so and talk about a lot of different issues. They're the driving force behind the Martin Luther King Day Junior events, working with the library. And I hope to see you all at a lot of these events. Any questions? Yes?
Where are those town hall meetings located?
Town hall meetings are at the Farmington Hills City Hall, and it's generally the third Saturday of every month from 10 to 10:30. We have refreshments, usually some muffins and donuts made by my husband, and coffee and juice. And then at 10:30 to 12, we actually have the town hall meeting inside the chambers. And the City Hall is located at Orchard Lake and 11 Mile Road. Okay, well again, thank you for inviting me and thank you for hosting this program tonight.
Thank you so much, Christina. We're going to try out your husband's baked goods there, hopefully very soon. Next up, we're going to have Police Chief Chuck Nevis of the City of Farmington Hills come up, and he's going to share a few words with us. So, have him come up right now.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here. It's an honor to be your police chief. You know what my role is, I'm sure, to keep all of you safe, and I think we're doing a good job doing that. We're known as one of the safest cities in Michigan and the country, and I'm proud to be the police chief in a community that's so diverse and where hate crime is a rarity. It's really an honor to be here tonight. I commend you for that, for the outreach that you do. I've been a guest at Tahi for on and off for the past 12 years when I've been serving as chief in either Farmington or Farmington Hills, and it's always been an honor to be here. I always feel I'm amongst friends, and really applaud the outreach that you do with our community here at Tawheed, and that's really the clue to building bridges and friendships and clearing up misunderstandings. So thank you for doing that. I look forward to the rest of the evening and hearing from our panelists and hearing the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for serving in the community. Really appreciate it. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get to the panel we have set up for this evening. So at this time, I'll just invite Imam Dawood Walid and Ustad Taysir Safi and Ustad Zainab Salman to come up to the stage. Feel free to come up. As you guys come up, I'm just going to do short introductions of all three of them. Just very brief. First, we have Dawood Walid, who's the Executive Director of the Michigan chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, otherwise known as CARE. They're America's largest, it's a chapter of America's largest advocacy and civil liberties organization for Muslims in the country. And he's been he's worked with them for a very long time. He's someone who's very active in our community here in Detroit. So we're very happy and honored to have him here today. We have Ustad Zainab Salman, who's been serving as a local high school teacher and community activist for several years. I know she's born and raised here in Detroit as well, so she's someone who is local to the area as well. And then we also have Muhammad Taysir Safi all the way to the left. He serves as the Muslim chaplain at the University of Michigan of Ann Arbor. And I know he's someone who's also grown up in the Ann Arbor area and has grown up in the Metro Detroit area as well. So we're really honored and fortunate to have all three of them here this evening to speak about Islamophobia, everything we have going on. So just to get an idea of a little bit of the format we'll be doing. First, I'll initially have all three of our panelists speak at first, and they can take as long, anywhere from 10, 15 minutes. If you want to go longer, go shorter, feel free. And then after that, we will open up a question and answer to the group, to the entire crowd. I believe we do have pen and paper going around. So feel free to ask any questions. There's no question that is, we have baskets that will be going around with pen and paper on both sides here. So feel free to write your questions down as they're going along. I will make sure that we get to our panelists, and we'll try to save as much time as we can to do that. So without any further ado, I believe we're going to start with Imam Dawood Walid to begin.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina wa Habibina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walam. Thumma amma ba'd. Brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity, it's an honor and a privilege to be here with you this evening. And the purpose of me being first is to really try to put a little historical basis on what's going on right now in terms of the uptick of Islamophobia that is taking place in America, not just in political rhetoric, but also in hate crimes, to our houses of worship throughout the country, workplace discrimination, as well as school bullying. And also, for many of those of you who know me, sometimes I can be a little sharp in my comments, so I will try to keep it real, speak the truth, but hopefully what I'm about to say won't cause any offense, but if you're feeling a little discomfort about some of the things I'm going to say, don't pull back, but kind of lean into it. Don't run away, but lean into it a little bit. So, when I hear people make the comment that Islamophobia or bigotry is un-American, I think that people say that comment coming from a perspective of the American ideas that we as a nation articulate. But in reality, Islamophobia, which is nothing but a branch on the tree of structural racism in America, is very American. It's as American as apple pie. It's as American as cherry pie. If you understand race politics in the United States of America. And Islamophobia is not just simply an issue of religious bigotry, it is grounded in American race politics. Our country was established, and I use this term, dhul wajhayn, because we have a hadith about dhul wajhayn, two faces. We have a country that was established upon the principle of people wanting religious liberty, because in Western Europe, people who did not practice the religion of the royal family, of the aristocrat class, face discrimination and suppression and marginalization, be it in Britain, France, etc. People face that. And they came over here for the right to freely practice religion. So we say our country was based upon the principle of religious liberty. The problem with that is there were millions of Africans who were brought here enslaved and had Christianity forced upon them, because there were no Christians in West Africa. Christianity came in West Africa as a consequence of colonialism. About 30% of those Africans, in fact, were Muslims that helped build this country. Muslims have been here since the first Africans came here over 400 years ago, so you're not new. Our legacy here is not new. We actually came here even before Columbus. So we're not new here. So we have this, and also people who came to this country seeking property rights. Right? Because also you had what's called the aristocrat class, so-called landlords, and the people who were the landless. And they came to the United States of America to own land. Problem with that is there were already people living here. And it's estimated about 100 million Native Americans were killed in the process of the establishment of the Americas, with about 96% of their land stolen. And since this very time of the inception of the United States of America, there's always been a group of people who have caught Hades that were outside of the status quo of people who were in the social construct of whiteness. Even the Irish caught it. There's a book called How the Irish Became White. You should look it up. Catholicism was considered a non-white religion in America about 100 years ago. When Irish people immigrated to America, they had their own special box. You had white, you had Irish. Irish actually originally came here and were brought here as slaves, indentured servants, but they had to stop using them and start only using black slaves, because the Irish people could sneak off and you couldn't tell, if they were a slave or not, because they had white skin. You see? Italian people who also practiced Catholicism, that was considered a non-white religion. Judaism and Jews, if we go back even to the early 1960s, Jewish people were not being sold property in Farmington Hills in Oakland County if they were openly Jewish. Jewish people didn't start moving into Oakland County until after the '67 uprising in Detroit, and then you had the establishment of Sterling Heights or Sterling Whites, because that city was started shortly after the uprising of 1967 with white flight. And this has happened to so many people. Chinese Americans who are not Christian. During the Chinese Exclusion Act of the late 19th century, we had the Asian Exclusion Act of 1924 that took place. And it wasn't until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that then paved the way for the Immigration Act of 1965, which allowed some of your parents, if you're second-generation immigrants, to even get to America to begin with. Or those of you who came later on, because I'm sure most of you who are here were Muslims. Your families, most of you were not here prior to 1965 because you couldn't immigrate here. Because by law, you could not immigrate here. So my point is that the Islamophobia that we are facing here in America right now in the political discourse, there's always been an otherization of people who are seen outside the status quo, and they are always low-hanging fruit. Even when President Barack Hussein Obama was elected in 2008, and then he was called a closet Muslim and the whole birther movement started, that was just code language to otherize him. They couldn't call him the N-word, so they called him a Muslim. And anti-black racism never ended in America. You see? Racism has never ended in America. We are not a post-racial society, and we Muslims are just fit in whether you're black, Arab American, Indian American, or South Asian American. We all fit into this racial hierarchy that has always existed in the United States of America, not in writing, but it is de facto. That's why certain groups can be vilified easier than others. And I'll give an example. 353 mass shootings this year in America so far. More mass shootings than actual days of the year so far. Mass shooting is when 4 more people are shot. Only 2 of those were reportedly committed by Muslims. 2, the other 351 weren't. Yet, when we look at the difference between what happened in Colorado Springs, the shooter, or Dylan Roof, who committed that white supremacist terrorist who went to that church in South Carolina, the FBI director didn't even call them terrorists. The media called them a suspected gunman. Race politics informs all of that, or who that are called the terrorists and who are not. According to FBI statistics, 94% of people who commit terrorism on the homeland are people who are not Muslim. 94%. Yet we are asked to apologize and condemn stuff that happens halfway across the world, or San Bernardino, that we have absolutely nothing to do with, that had nothing to do with our religion. Yet when black churches were being burned down in Ferguson, where almost 14 black churches were burned down in less than 2 weeks in Ferguson, just a couple of months ago, and Ku Klux Klan recruitment is at record high, Christians, because Ku Klux Klan claims to be a Christian organization, Ku Klux Klan and white Americans are never asked to speak out and say, oh, this doesn't represent Christianity, this doesn't represent white folks. This has to do with race politics. Now, my advice, and this is primarily for the Muslims in the room, we as Muslims have to get more authentically engaged in the racial justice movement in America. Just being concerned about Islamophobia and not xenophobia against Latinos, anti-black racism for black people who aren't Muslim, that's not getting us anywhere. Justice doesn't mean just us. I say it all the time. Justice does not mean just us. If we're only interested in fighting Islamophobia and not for fighting racism as a whole this country was established upon, we cannot solve our problem. I'll end with this. Jesse Jackson spoke at our banquet in 2010, and I love this analogy Reverend Jesse Jackson made. He said, stop worrying about putting out the fire in your own room. Join everyone else and put out the fire in the entire house instead of waiting in your room for the water hose. If you join everyone else and fight the fire that started in the house, you'll automatically save your room. You will automatically save your room. If you're just worried about putting out the fire of Islamophobia, but not dealing with the broader racial justice platform in America, mass incarceration, police brutality, calls for mass deportation of Latinos. If we are missing in action on those, we can never do anything for Islamophobia. 1, because Allah won't bless us. 2, we will not have built the political capital to bring in more allies and to call them so they can see Islam in action and what Islam is really about. So this is a challenge for us, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, and I'm actually ending 3 minutes before my 15-minute part. Alhamdulillah. With that, I will conclude, and I will be available for any questions that are posed towards me. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لكم. Alhamdulillah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. We begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. We ask that He send peace and blessings upon our noble and our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi sallam. I thank the board of Tawheed Center for inviting us here, Imam Dawood, Ustad Zainab, the state congresswoman, as well as the chief of police, all of the guests, and for you for coming. And I want to thank Imam Dawood for giving us some social context, for giving us some historical context, and for speaking truth, although it's difficult sometimes to hear and to fully grasp. I decided to take it from a different lens, and we knew the three of us were coming, so we tried to all kind of speak to different things. And so what I hope to talk about was relying upon God and this real issue that we have as a community, that we're being inundated with negative imagery and negative meanings about our own religion. But I want to start with a story. So Muslims, we believe in Abraham, just as the Jewish tradition and the Christian tradition. And we believe that Abraham is the father of all of these great monotheistic faiths. And in the story of Abraham, the Quran mentions that once Abraham has begun to call his people to the one true God, just like any oppressive group, they decide that they're going to punish him and they're going to harm him. And they decide, how are they going to harm him? They're going to build a fire, a raging fire. And they're going to cast Abraham into this raging fire. And the story says that the fire was so hot that they couldn't even bring him to just push him in. That they had to build kind of like a catapult to throw him into the fire. And the Quran says that Abraham is cast into this fire. And while he's being cast into this fire, the story is that the archangel came to him. And he said to Abraham, do you need any help? And he said, from you? No. And that he's cast into the fire, and the Quran says that God says to the fire, be cool and tranquil for Abraham. And the fire doesn't harm him. And he survives. And from him, many progeny, and many of us who sit in this room are from the progeny of Sayyidina Ibrahim, and all of us spiritually are from that religion. And so we've benefited from that. And I wanted to point to that story because I wanted to show the reliance of Ibrahim alayhi salam upon God. And the fact that despite what seemed like inevitable odds, despite what seemed like a done deal, despite what seemed like a horrendous situation, Abraham was totally reliant upon God. And brothers and sisters in faith, fear can be good and fear can be bad. Bad fear is fearing other created beings. Fearing created beings is a negative thing. It's a disease of the heart. To fear other people, to fear other groups, other cultures, other races, other religions, that's a negative, ill thing. But to fear God is a noble thing. And God is the only one who's deserving of fear. And even the idea of fear in English, it doesn't match with the idea of fear that we're speaking of in the Quran. Because it's a fear that's mixed with love. Right? A fear that's mixed with love. We love God. And so therefore, we're in awe of Him. We respect Him. But we don't fear people, despite if the people gather. And in the famous verses of Ali Imran, one of the chapters of the Quran, it was after the Battle of Uhud, and the Prophet ﷺ, they had promised, they had made a deal with the disbelievers, that this battle for that, and they were going to meet at Badr again. It's called Badr al-Sughra. And they were planning to go to Badr al-Sughra, and Abu Sufyan, who had not converted to Islam yet, he paid someone, or paid a group of people, to come to the Prophet Muhammad and to say, the people have gathered to destroy you once and for all. So it was kind of like negative propaganda, right? And so they came to the Prophet ﷺ and his people, and they said, the people are gathering for you. It's done. It's over. Fear them. And what did the Prophet ﷺ and his people say? They said it only increased them in faith, the Quran says. And they said, our Lord is sufficient for us, and what an excellent guardian. It only increased them in faith, brothers and sisters in faith. And the true believer is the believer who relies upon God, is certain of his Creator. And I was blessed to study linguistics for a while. And they say in linguistics that if you want to learn a language well, take this down as a secret if you want to learn how to learn language, it's all about input. The better the input of the language, the better the output. If you learn English from some of the most noble and eloquent of writers, your English will be good. But if you learn English poorly, then your English is not going to be so good. Similarly, my brothers and sisters in faith, our religion is no different. If your input about your religion is negative, if you're learning about religion, forgive me, but from news shows and from pundits, and honestly from social media, what you're going to have of religion is going to be weak. It's going to be flimsy. The certitude will decrease. But if you're learning this religion from the noble words of God, if you're learning it from the words of our noble and our beloved Prophet ﷺ, then your faith will be strong and it will increase. And if you reflect on God's creation, your faith will increase to the point that you'll be like, hopefully, a shred of who Abraham was. And even when you see all of this negativity come into your face, you say, I don't need anything from anyone. I believe in God. And brothers and sisters in faith, if you think what we're going through is difficult, I don't want to negate your emotions. I don't want you to feel like it's not difficult. I don't want to go back and say, you think it's difficult, it's not that difficult. Because I don't think that's really helpful. But it is helpful to look at the historical context that our teacher Imam Dawood here mentions. Because there were many people who faced much more difficult situations in this country. Many, much more difficult than us. And if we understand that, that will give us a little bit of tranquility. And your prophet faced much more difficult consequences. Much more difficult. When the first of the companions was killed in gruesome ways, what would he say to her family and her as he walked by them? He'd say, "Sabran ya ala Yasir, fa inna maw'idukum al-jannah." He said, patience, O family of Yasir, for your meeting place is paradise itself. Right? And so we need to have that type of strength of faith, that strength of resolve, that love of God and love of the Prophet. And then negative things will happen in front of us, and we'll do what we can. And I'll end with the last couple of points. One is, I'm not calling you not to do anything. Oftentimes, when people come and speak religion, people begin to misunderstand. They say, oh, they just want us to sit around and pray. That's not what we're saying. You should sit around and pray, but you should also do something. The difference between good hope and false hope is the person who has good hope, he ties his camel, as they say in our religion, he prays, and then he works, right? He strives, he joins social justice movements, right? He or she does what they have to do, but they rely on God regardless of what happened, right? False hope is to sit around, not do anything, but tweet a bunch of things, right? That's not going to get us that far. Right? It's not going to get us that far, brothers and sisters in faith. So I ask you and I ask myself, and I'll wrap up here, that we do two things. One is we learn about our religion. We strengthen that road with God and His messenger. Because strengthening that road, then people can say whatever they want about us. Because people have said things about us for a really, really long time. Right? But we have that strength of faith and it doesn't shake us. And it doesn't shake our resolve.